Welcome to AP and DP, SEC, ACC conference coverage. I'm AP Steadham from LA, Lower Alabama, along with my co-host, DP Doug Parrish, former University of California defensive back extraordinaire. Hey, DP.
How you doing, AP? Good to be with you again at week 6 of college football.
Another big weekend. I'm here in the Midwest at a big ball game, Big Ten, Iowa at Ohio State. So we get a chance to get out of the SEC for a moment to check some of the contenders. And I know you're on the West Coast, big ball game for you. Why don't you tell the folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me just start out by saying it's really good to be back here in California. The weather is perfect. I mean, there's like really a good brisk breeze going on across the bay. All of the sailboats are out. I mean, you can't picture a better panoramic view to play football in than Memorial Stadium. So it's going to be really exciting. I'll talk a little bit more about that and what that comes along with game day being here. And I'm super excited to be back at Cal.
Hey, Doug.
I think the first thing I want to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that the ACC has the 8 games this week. The SEC has the 6, so we're going to let you proceed first.
Outstanding, AP. Let me start by saying this. Do you like to shake the dice and roll the dice? Well, guess what? UNLV will be taking on Syracuse. Yes, Syracuse came way across the country to take on the UNLV Running Rebels. Now, Syracuse is 3-1. They hit the road for the first time to take on the number 25 ranked UNLV Rebels, who are 4-0 of the Mountain West, AP. That game kicks off a little bit later on this evening. So I'm glad that we got an opportunity to get our show on the road and get our show going here. You know, the key to that game is going to be turnovers. It's going to be who's going to win the turnover battle, AP. And you got to be able to stop the run. Both teams in this case have to be, you know, well-tuned, well-oiled, and ready to go to stop the run, because it's going to be essential into whoever's going to win this game. And guess what? Don't forget about the special teams. A lot of people just talk about offense and defense. But, AP, you can't win the game without kicking the ball. You can't win the game without punting the ball. Come on, man. Get down there and hit somebody. Look, Syracuse, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to be resilient on the road, because UNLV, undefeated, got the momentum. We'll see how they play out in the Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Can't think of a better place to play either than there. The second one I got, AP, I know you got a lot of comments on that, man. But the second one I got is the guys from the Southeast. Hey, Clemson versus Florida. It's going to be a tough game. Traditionally, these two teams are powerhouses, right, in the ACC. The Tigers are 3-1, and they're ranked number 14. You know, so they won their last 3 games, including a 40-14 victory, AP, over the Stanford Cardinals, my old coach, Troy Taylor, down in Death Valley. So Florida State, they're not getting off to a good start. The only win they have is against my alma mater, Cal Berkeley. Hey, come on now. They're going to have to get their act together. They are unranked for the first time in a long time. They are uncomfortable. All the Seminole fans, you know, they're really uncomfortable with this situation. They were thinking that since they had such a sensational season last year, that they were going to come back bouncing and beating people up. But the parity, the NIL, and the transfer portal is evening the playing field among all the college-ranked teams right now. Clemson's coach, Dabo Swinney, said this. He was asked last week, was he surprised that the Seminoles had such a tough record? He said no, because guess what? The competition that they played against, the Cows of the world, and so on and so forth, they are very competitive. So he's not surprised at all. He's thinking to himself, he's like, if you've done this long enough like I have, there's going to be 1 or 2 years where you're going to have a down year. So Dabo Swinney is still confident. He's building his team organically, and he's getting those freshmen ready to play, and he's preparing for next year. So those are my top two right now, AP.
All righty, we're going to step into the SEC. Alabama coming off that exciting, dramatic win when they were ahead by 30-7 at halftime and had to come from behind at the end to beat the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes.
So Alabama ranked number 1 now with that victory over Georgia. They'll be playing the Vanderbilt Commodores in Nashville. There's an interesting statistic that Vanderbilt, they're 96th, Doug, in total offense, okay, which is a low number. We know it's 130 plus teams total. Their pass offense is 101. Sure. But their scoring offense, which is the most important really on that side of the ball, they're 26th in the country. So I don't know if I've ever seen statistics so low offensively, but yet it doesn't prove in the point column. They're high in the point column at 26 in the country. But Alabama had over 500 yards against Georgia, gave up over 500 yards defensively. Ryan Williams, we spoke about him before the season. We thought he's going to be impactful. Sure enough, I don't think Alabama's undefeated without Ryan Williams, that star wide receiver from Saraland, Alabama. So Alabama, number 1 in the country. They lead that series 60-19, 4 ties over Vanderbilt. But Vandy took Mizzou to 2 overtimes a couple weeks ago, which is pretty impressive because Mizzou has a good offense. So Vandy took Mizzou to 2 overtimes a few weeks ago, but Alabama should win this ball game. We go to the second game. Should be a challenge for Tennessee to go on the road once again. They beat Oklahoma a few weeks back, but they're going on the road to play Arkansas. Arkansas is a very good team. Couple close losses. Oklahoma State to start the season on the road. They lost last week 21-17 to Texas A&M in Arlington, that neutral site ball game. Per Josh Heupel, he said Arkansas is good against the run. Their quarterback is definitely a difference maker. Green, the transfer from Boise State, he's tall, he's lanky, he can run. Passing is he can hurt you with his pass. He's not as effective, but he definitely can get 100 yards running the football. And then the third down conversion rate is pretty high for Arkansas. So Tennessee, Doug, number 1 total defense, number 1 in the country total defense, number 1 in scoring offense. Wow. 2 number 1s. That's strong. Arkansas 13th in offense. Strong. Yeah, 47th in total defense. Per Sam Pittman, the head coach of Arkansas, they need to win on first down and they need to win in the short passing game to provide some relief for the quarterback so he's not affected by that outstanding pass rush led by James Pierce, the edge rusher for Tennessee. He's very good. So Tennessee's a 13.5-point favorite. They lead that series 13-6, Doug. So those are the first 2 games we have out of the 6 in the SEC. Back to you.
Very competitive. Yeah, absolutely. The SEC and the ACC AP are very strong this year. I'm going to follow that up with BC, Boston College, versus Virginia. Now, the game will be broadcast on the ACC network, which is going to be nice. A lot of people will be able to get to see their favorite teams. Boston College leads the series 7-1. And in the first meeting over a season ago, BC trailed 21-7 at the half, but they outscored University of Virginia 20-3 in the final 2 quarters. And now check this out, AP. Talk about like transfer portal. Left guard Logan Taylor played 2 seasons at Virginia before transferring to Boston College in 2023. He started all 12 games at left tackle, man. I tell you, it's just so interesting. It's not frowned upon just to go and jump around to different team. But defensive end Donovan Ezeruku, he leads the FBS in sacks with 8. He has 8 solo sacks, and that's basically 1.6 per game. So keep your eyes out for him. He was named ACC Defensive Player of the Week last week. He had 14 tackles last week, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. I mean, you better keep your eye out for him. So this should be a very interesting game coming up in the ACC. Now, I have one more here that just flew in. NC State versus Wake Forest. Now, NC State is looking to start its first 2-game winning streak, AP, in a long time against these guys. The Pack knocked off Northern Illinois last week And then the Demon Deacons are looking to shake an early season 3-game losing streak. I don't know if they're going to make that happen. Wake Forest has led to one of your favorites, Hank Bachmeier. Remember him? Yep.
Quarterback.
He has, quarterback, 1,159 yards passing, and he has 5 touchdowns. And talked about, he's a good signal caller. He can throw the ball deep. He's very competitive. So I'm looking forward to an excellent game between NC State and Wake Forest today or tomorrow.
Okay, Doug. Yeah, it sounds interesting. Wake Forest on the road. That's North Carolina State, I believe, right, Doug? Yeah. Be a tough game for them. We're going to go to the oldest rivalry in the South, Doug. Auburn versus Georgia. Georgia's a 23.5-point favorite. They're coming off that very dramatic game against Alabama where they were down 30-7, came back to take the lead 34-33, and then lost at the very next play. Defensively, they gave up 500 yards just like Alabama. There wasn't much defense amongst those two teams. But Georgia, Doug, we always discuss Kirby Smart likes to run the football, but they're 102nd in the country, 102nd in the country in rushing. Last week, they had 439 yards of passing from Carson Beck, 519 total yards of offense. So they're looking to rebound from that loss against Alabama. They probably will, although Auburn played them tough last year on the Plains. It was a 1-score victory for the Bulldogs. Auburn, Doug, we keep saying they're moving the football. They are moving the football on offense, but the turnovers prevent them from winning. They had the pick 6 last week. Peyton Thorne, they had 482 yards of offense. He threw for over 300. Jaquez Hunter, nearly 100 at 97 yards, but they lost the ball game 27-21. So their total offense is 23rd in the country, but yet they have 3 losses, Doug. Their pass offense is 25th, rush offense 62nd. Doug, turnovers, 131st in the country. There's only a couple teams behind them. Okay?
Right.
Minus 2.2 per game. And so Auburn, if they can just have a game with no turnovers, they could upset somebody with that type of offense.
Yeah.
Because they're giving relief to their defense. They're not on the field all the time, but they just loved. They're generous. They're generous at Auburn right now. Yeah. Too generous. So anyhow, but Georgia's a 23.5-point favorite, number 5 in the country. So we'll see what happens. Georgia should probably win the game at home. They're all those folks are mad that they still can't beat Alabama. Kirby Smart 1-6 against Nick Saban. Now he lost again. So it's not. It became everyone said it was a Nick Saban issue. Looks like if you and I could coach Alabama, we may win against Georgia. I don't know. That's the way it seems at the moment. Anyway, moving on to the. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just saw, I was coming back from an event in Birmingham, and I noticed the slew of cars and RVs. A lot of disappointed people leaving Bryant-Denny Stadium after that loss to Alabama, and it was traffic galore. But I'll say one thing about those Auburn Tigers, man. The team is just too good of a team to shoot themselves in the foot like that. So you're absolutely right. If they could put those penalties behind them, they'll be okay.
Turnovers, those turnovers, Doug. They give up too many points with those turnovers. So we're going to move on, Doug, to Central Florida, playing University of Florida. Doug, could you ever imagine that a school in Orlando would build itself up to be just a 1-point underdog to the team from Gainesville, the University of Florida? Never. No way. But that's where we are now, 2024. Florida's just a 1-point favorite. We know that Florida, they just have a problem. Their offensive line, and they need to get settled. They have some younger players they're trying to work into that rotation as well. They play the 2 quarterbacks. They do that quarterback shuffle like so many teams this year. With Graham Mertz and then DJ Lagway, the very good freshman. Their rush defense, Doug, 109th, pass defense, 92nd, defense, Doug. Defense, Florida, 112th total defense. That is not good enough to be in the state of Florida producing so many fantastic athletes in your defense. Is below 100. Central Florida coming off the loss to Colorado, 48-21. I think that was disappointing because I think they were double-digit favorite in that game at home, and they lost. So Gus Malzahn, they could upset the Gators. They could upset them in Gainesville, which would be a monumental victory for Central Florida to beat the Gators in Gainesville. But like I said, they're just a 1-point favorite, which is really essentially saying it's a toss-up, Doug. So their pass defense, Doug, Central Florida, 106 in the country. So maybe Florida could do something in the pass game to sustain a win.
Interesting, I tell you. Well, flipping over to the ACC, AP, thanks for that analysis. Pitt takes on North Carolina. Okay, the Panthers are 4-0 for the first time since 2000, and you know they're just chomping at the bit. They're playing with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of momentum, and I'm telling you, they blew out Kent State 54-24 in the season opener, and then they made 2 comeback wins. They were down 21, then they came back and won the game against the Red River rivalry in that Red River rivalry a couple of weeks ago against and then beat West Virginia as well. So I mean, these guys are they have the momentum. They know they're like a shark that seeks out the blood in the water, man. They're sniffing it out there. They know how to win, and that's a great thing. Now North Carolina started 3-0, but you know, on the road against Minnesota, and they had a good win against Charlotte, 38-20. So it's going to be a very competitive game. With both of these teams, I think are needing to win this game in order to stay competitive and to try to get a spot at the lead into the ACC to get a berth in the playoffs. So you think about all of these teams, they're playing, they want to win their conference, AP. So you got next we got Duke versus Georgia Tech. Now the Yellow Jackets are gearing up. They're gearing it up, man. They have a challenge this week. They will face the undefeated Blue Devils. Okay, this is not a basketball game, folks. This is they're coming off an impressive victory against their rivals, North Carolina. You know, so Duke's defense is currently ranked 5th best in the ACC, AP, and they only are allowing 288 yards in the air and 16 points per game. While these numbers are strong, Duke has struggled with the run, giving up 133 yards a game. Anything over 95, 100 yards a game, you know, you want to try to evaluate that and get that down. I think the weakness from last weekend is that the Tar Heels had 156 yards against them. But despite that, Duke's defense excels in forcing turnovers. Those are momentum plays, AP, and you need to have those when you can get the ball on these turnovers. That's what they call sudden change, you know. So we need to have a lot of that, and I expect a lot of that in this game today. And Duke versus Georgia should be a very competitive game.
Georgia Tech, yep. Those are your games, Doug. Back to me, huh? We're going to look at Ole Miss.
Yes, sir.
A 9.5-point favorite over South Carolina. Ole Miss is number 12 in the country. They dropped because they lost the game to Kentucky at home. Kentucky had the front four up front. It just dominated really that ball game. Put Ole Miss in a lot of third downs. Ole Miss was 1 for 10, Doug, throughout the day on third down, which is not a winning part of a winning formula. And you have to eliminate that from the equation. 1 for 10 is not going to win you many ball games in the SEC. So in Kentucky was at a pinpoint passing game with Brock Vandergriff at the quarterback position. Dane Key was the main receiver. Trey Harris for Ole Miss caught 11 passes, couple of touchdowns, but they shut down Kentucky. They shut down Ole Miss, held them to 17 points. Doug, 2 games. They held Georgia to 13. They held Ole Miss to 17 points. That's 30 games, and that might be the 2 best defensive games of the entire season. The whole Georgia and Ole Miss, the 30 points total by this Kentucky defense, which was strong in the secondary. J.Q. Hardaway, the big cornerback, he was trying to guard Trey Harris. he gave up the 11 receptions for the 2 touchdowns, but they kind of simmered everybody else down and holding them to 17 total points. That 1 for 10 stands out. That was the reason Kentucky was able to win their ball game. They were effective with their play calling. They ran the ball enough times to keep the Ole Miss offense on the sideline. So Ole Miss was very disappointed, a home loss. This is a game that Lane Kiffin usually wins. He usually wins this type of game against a team where he was favored, but he ended up losing. So now it makes their berth for the 12-team college playoff a little more difficult because they have to host Georgia. They have to go down to LSU among some of the more difficult ball games. Our last game on the schedule is Mizzou 4-0, number 9 in the country versus Texas A&M 4-1. Doug, Texas A&M is the favorite at home, even though they're not ranked. 1.5-point favorite. We know that Mizzou has a good offensive team with Luther Burden III and the quarterback Cook. That's a good comp, one of the best in the country. But they haven't had many explosive plays. Not very many explosive plays for whatever reason. And so Eli Drinkwitz, he's not very happy. They have to be more consistent on the offense in providing them their team more explosive plays. Their total defense is 3. Total defense is good for Missouri. Rush defense 19, pass defense 5. Texas A&M, Doug, their pass offense is 116th in the country. They had the quarterback at the beginning of the year. They made a switch to Marcel West, I believe his name is. But anyway, Reed, I'm sorry, Marcel Reed. His sister, Bria Reed, is the assistant director of recruiting at Missouri, and her brother is the starting quarterback, true freshman out of high school, starting quarterback at Texas A&M. So that's an interesting dynamic. Yeah, the Reed family. Yeah, Texas A&M has a good defensive line, and their defensive backs are improving, but and they're the favorite in this game going against the number 9 team. So we'll see what happens. And then, Doug, we have the teams with the byes. Number 2, Texas has a bye. Number 13, LSU has a bye. Number 19, Oklahoma has a bye. They're getting ready for the Red River rivalry next week in Dallas, Texas at the Old Cotton Bowl. Kentucky has a bye, and Mississippi State has a bye. So that rounds up the SEC for this week.
Well, flipping back to the ACC, we got Louisville going against SMU. And I laugh when I say Louisville because that was an incredible game. You know, when they played against Notre Dame last week, it was a very interesting game. But Louisville is 3-1. They're 6.5 points favorite at home against the SMU Mustangs, who are actually 4-1. Very impressive for them to come from another conference and be in the ACC this year and have some success. Both teams feature some really good defenses. Looking forward to seeing the Cardinals defense. They're ranked 23rd against the run in the nation. And the Mustangs defense, they are 16th defending the run. So guess what, AP? Either they're going to be throwing the ball in the air or it's going to be a long game, man. We're going to be, so it's going to be a low-scoring game, I would assume, with these types of defenses. The Cardinals lost to Notre Dame, like I said, but the Mustangs actually beat Florida State 42-16 in their last contest, AP. So look for these two teams to try to stay at the top of the conference. Now, AP, I saved the best for last. Number eight, Miami versus Cal Berkeley. Guess who's the quarterback for Miami? Cam Ward. He played in the Pac-10, Pac-12, excuse me. He enjoys playing at California Memorial Stadium, and he likes the atmosphere. You know what? I can't disagree with them because I love playing at Cal, especially at night, in the evening when the sun goes down behind the mountains. Man, there's nothing like it. And it's good. He was quoted saying that it's good to be back because he played there when he was at Washington State. So he completed 34 of 59 passes for 354 yards in the game when the Cal played the Cougars. So he's had some success at Memorial Stadium. He's looking, they actually lost that game. He's looking for a different outcome against Cal, as Miami are undefeated and are looking to continue on with their undefeated streak. Mark Richt's second season before losing the 3 final games of the year last year, he has college football playoff aspirations for this team, AP. And just like a lot of these teams, there's a lot of parity. I continue to say this, is that there's a lot of parity among college football. All eyes will actually not just be on the teams themselves, but college game day. Reese, the coaches that are going to be there, Desmond Howard, Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, you talk about a pregame show. It's going to be hyped. The kids and the students from Cal Berkeley are camping out as we speak. It is energy out the roof around here. And so people are going to be very excited about the game to get their signs up behind Nick Saban as he commentates on the game. It's going to be really exciting. The pregame show is going to be in Berkeley. And, one of the key things that are going to happen on that show is that they're going to invite a guest picker. And that guest picker is none other than Marshawn Lynch. Guess what? I hope he inspires the Heisman Trophy candidate, Jaden Ott, to have some success in the running game, because he's kind of been under the radar so far this season. And that's a wrap from the ACC.
Hey, thank you, Doug. And I know you're looking forward to that critical matchup. 2 teams, one from the West Coast, one from the East Coast, both members of the newly formed ACC with the addition of Cal, Stanford, and SMU. So we'd like to thank you for another show, AP and DP SEC ACC conference coverage. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, AP. It's always a blast being with you. Take care.
Thank you, DP.